We would like to welcome everyone here to our Australian White breed genetics panel discussion. Good evening. My name is Doug Edge, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's panel. We do have Graham Gilmore from Tattykeel Farms in Australia on with us this evening, as well as Dr. Tad Thompson, veterinarian with Reproduction Specialty Group and a member of the AETA Board of Directors, will be joining us as well. He's the one with some technical problems trying to log in at the moment. We are also expecting Dax Diettrich to join us here this evening. Dax is one of the largest importers in the U.S. of the Australian white breed genetics, and most recently had a sale towards the end of 2025 to kind of share some of those results and feedback from that with us. I know Dax is in a remote area and is also trying to log in here this evening, so hopefully he'll be able to connect here with us shortly. Want to first of all just let everyone know that we will be taking questions later on. If you do have questions, you can put those in the chat. We'll try to address those there. That's probably the easiest way to do it with a group this large. We do ask you to keep your microphone muted throughout the meeting so we can hear everyone and be courteous to everyone else. And then towards the end, we'll hopefully have a few minutes as well if you want to ask some questions as well. So it looks like Dr. Tad Thompson is on and joined us. That's good. So we have most of our panel here. We'll get started with that. So first of all, I'm going to turn it over to Graham Gilmore. Graham is the founder of the Australian White Breed in Australia. Spent many years developing this breed and bringing it to fruition. Has done a tremendous amount of research and has a lot of knowledge in genetics and matings, and will share with us a little bit about the beginnings of the breed and kind of where we are today with the movement here in the United States. So, Graham, good evening or good morning, I guess I should say to you there in Australia.
Oh, it's good afternoon. It's after midday here. So, look, thanks, Doug, for the invitation, and I just want to thank everybody for coming online with this, and hopefully we can get as much information out to everybody as. And if anybody's got any questions, if you did put it in the chat, even whilst I'm talking or anybody else is talking, and they come up, it will come up as what's in there, won't it, Doug, as we're speaking? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, look, basically for those of you, and I've scrolled through a lot of the people that are online, I have spoken to a lot of you. A lot I haven't spoken, but you may have bought embryos in the past. So basically where it sits, the Australian White, for those of you that don't know, they were developed on this farm by my family, and it was originally developed as to be a fully haired sheep that had carcass traits similar to the best modern lambs that you can find around the world. So we needed to get a haired sheep that had carcass shape. We were chasing uniformity in the breed, so that we wanted black feet, black noses, a white skin, good carcass traits, out of season breeding, which not everybody is after, but in a lot of countries, being able to join at any time of the year is also a big issue for just turning profit. So a lot of our clients in Australia are joining every 8 months. Some have sheep lambing twice a year. There are certain lines that will do that. So all these traits that we locked into the breed through line breeding them. There's a lot of conjecture in the modern genetic space from the genetic experts that we all need to be headed down a composite path, because composite gives you certain advantages. The Australian White started as a composite, and the problem we had as a composite early was just simply consistency. So consistency of shedding, consistency of type, the variation of those animals when they hit the rail in an abattoir. There was just too much variation. So we basically line bred them to type and to the traits that we were chasing. Then it sort of exploded around the world, firstly into China, where there were I sent many thousands of ewes into China, and not thousands of rams, but a lot of ewes in live export, a lot of embryos. The embryos that were sent there were all sent from Breed Tech, Simon Bell out of Western Australia, who still does our embryo work. So it sort of exploded there. Then it's gone to other countries, and anything from really cold conditions to hot and dry or hot and humid. In Costa Rica, they're going well. So they're quite a diverse breed, and one of the reasons that you can run them in different conditions is that hair coat. So if you've got that hair coat, so if we're talking America, maybe 3/4 of an inch when they're born, and that's a hollow fibre called it's a heterotypic fibre. So it's not a straight, it's not like a Kemp fibre, it's actually hollow, and that will keep the lambs warmer when they're born in cold conditions. So they're actually a lot stronger in cold conditions than what a wool lamb is, because when a wool lamb's born, they don't really have any cover. The wool follicle hasn't really kicked in to grow properly. So the wool lamb's more exposed than the haired ones. That's what we identified pretty early. So for those of you in cold areas, it snows here too, not like the northern part of America, but it does snow regularly. They handle those conditions pretty well. So we didn't try and get an animal that would have close on 200% lambs, sort of nearly all having twins, because what we found is those in extreme conditions, keeping twins or triplets alive was very difficult. So we're basically looking at about 1.5, 1.6 on our older ewes, like mature ewes, and probably 1.1 on the maiden ewes. But the advantage is that we have bred into them that you can join at a very young age, 7, 8 months, no problems, if they're grown to, say, 110 pounds, 50 odd kilos when you're joining. So the advantage of this is if you are in that system of 8 months joining, you're getting a big lambing percentage with 3 joinings in 2 years. Most of the sheep that I studied around the world that were high in twinning rates, they had a lot of lambs, but most of the lambs look like goats. There's no meat on them. So you might have had a lot of legs, but you didn't have a lot of meat. So that's what we've concentrated on. It's a case of making sure that we've got a product that's right. Fast forward into the eating quality side, and that was the thing that I filled in when I filled my form in, Doug. Eating quality to me is the big issue with this breed. So to give you an idea of the difference in eating quality, your average lamb melting point of the intramuscular fat is in centigrade, is about 42 to 40, up to 46 degrees centigrade. So you're going to have to work that back yourselves. But to give you the comparison, our Australian white, the Tattykeel Australian white that we've done all the testing on, his average melting point is 34. So it's significantly lower than the best of the other breeds. That came about through some of the crossing, and we were lucky enough to hold that and then do a lot of testing through a university and a professor, and we've had a PhD student working on it for 7 or 8 years. He will come out of this as a doctor. That's what he studies on. Doesn't mean he can breed sheep, but he knows all about the eating qualities of the Australian white. He's written about 8 papers for international peer-reviewed magazines. There was one printed in America just recently, apparently. So that it's not hearsay, it's actually fact. So the beauty of that lower melting point is when any meat's cooked, that melting point drops again from what it is as a raw product. So through the cooking process, it lowers again. We're now looking at melting points at 34 degrees. The body temperature is 37.8 on average, I think, in centigrade. So we're actually below that before we cook it. So the advantage of this is when it hits your mouth, one of the biggest issues with lamb becoming a more eaten meat around the world is most modern palates don't like that fat sitting on your palate. They don't like, they don't like that taste in your mouth. The other thing is the smell of the lamb when it's cooking, and this animal does not smell virtually there's no smell when you're cooking it. So they're the two things that set it apart from other breeds. There are other breeds in the world that have the same qualities. I haven't been able to find them. I think it came from a unique cross of two of the breeds that we had in there. This is a bit like having the perfect recipe for a cake. Give 10 people the perfect recipe and somebody makes the perfect cake, and then you give the same 10 people the same information again and someone gets it right again, but it's probably a different person. So this is not a case of you could just replicate it again. The work that's been done is in the sheep, and the eating quality is genetic. It's not feed. So within our branded product, whether we take them off grass or off grain, off a lucerne or alfalfa paddock, we're getting very similar eating qualities from wherever they come and not getting complaints. So when we kill a line of lambs, it's 98, 99% make the Margaret brand and go into the branded product. So they're sort of some of the issues that do make it stand out from other breeds. Certainly got growth rate. It's a bigger, more mobile sheep than what Dorpers are. Taking nothing away from Dorpers, there's a lot of very good Dorpers. There's a lot of good sheep in all breeds out there, but we offer something that's quite unique, and we don't change the mix. We are line breeders, but we have big numbers. So if you've got 1,000 animals, you've got plenty of diversity in there. So that's a quick overview of what the breed is and how it got there was a lot of hard work from a dedicated family that we've done. We've done 40,000 plus embryo transfers for our own use on farm. So when we'd expand it on a generation with ET work, then we'd only select the very best to be in the next flush. So you're having flush after flush after flush, just centering around the best of the genetics. So there will be questions coming up on, or I've had people questioning whether or not this is a problem. Lot-fed sheep or sheep-fed in containment lots in the US in some areas, whether that will be a fact of those animals will only be good on that type of feed. My answer to that is very simple. I don't select on lot feeding. I select on grass feeding. That's our program. From our experience, I have a lot of people that may have to supplement at some stage. I have had people that have put them into fully grain finish, full grain finish because they've got no feed at all. Doesn't seem to affect the quality of the animal, and if they perform on grass really well, if you add grain, they just perform better. So we're very, very careful to not go down the path of a lot of cattle breeds and a lot of sheep breeds where if you don't feed them grain, you aren't in the game. You cannot finish them at all. So that's another issue that we certainly look at.
Very good. Thanks, Graham, for that overview and obviously sharing what you've worked really hard at creating in terms of a breed that's pretty unique, I think, in terms, and I can say firsthand, I've eaten full-blood Australian white lamb at your house, and it is like no other lamb. I have a spouse that never really cared for lamb much, and Lisa was right there telling you how good it was, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, I did some mutton, which was
Yeah,
two ewes that I killed. They were 6 and 7 year old. So in a grind, we can pick it if it's a chop because it's a bit grainier being an older animal. But in a grind, on a blind taste and smelling it when it cooks, there's still no smell.
unbelievable.
And yeah, it has whatever flavour you put with it, it takes, and
Yeah.
the fat melting point's the same. So we've actually gone to the stage of testing that the Margaret grind, which is lamb, against what we call Margaret vintage, which is older ewe, and the test results are virtually identical from the amount of the qualities of the fat, the protein, the carbohydrates, and that's something that we have also got a lot of information now on, that our protein levels for the number of carbs we have is far better than beef, long way better than beef. So as well as you've got high the omega side, With melting point, we've found that when your melting point is the lower the melting point comes with the Australian white, all our testing is that the omegas rise. So to be an omega source level, you need to have above 30 milligrams per 100 grams. So to give you an idea on omega-3s, it's EPA and DHA omegas are the ones that you're graded on. They're the only ones the human body can absorb. And if you go to the best fish, they're about 200 milligrams per 100. We're sitting at 32 to 34 megajoules per 100. So we're under fish, but the very best that we've had were 70. So on that side, it's the omega side is a big thing. And data-wise, we've got all the data on these animals, and the data we collect is from our clients. So we get the age of the animals, what they've been running on, what the carcass traits are in the abattoir, and that's the data we collect, which is raw data. The rest of the data through the testing we have, but I don't. I've told everybody what it is, how we test. We've actually identified the alleles that relate to our qualities, our eating quality, which is omegas, melting point, and IMF, and that we have under lock and key. That's the KFC secret herbs spices, and the idea that I would give that to everybody else would be it just doesn't make any sense at all. If you've got data that's good, I use it and I know how to use it, but if I give it to everybody else to be able to use on a blood test, they would push for certain traits. Now we don't push for on our testing whether it's 4% IMF in intramuscular fat or it's 8%. We don't have any difference in the eating quality. It doesn't change it. So we've identified the eating qualities coming from low melting point, omega-3s, and oleic acid, which is another omega. They're the key traits.
Very good.
If you buy the genetics from us, then you have it. It's in the animal.
Very good. Thanks, Graham, for that. I want to get to a couple of our other panelists here this evening. Dr. Tad Thompson is with us, veterinarian and founder of Reproduction Specialty Group, headquartered in Lebanon, Indiana, with another breeding center down in Ballinger, Texas, and also a location in Hamilton, New Zealand. Dr. Thompson, if you would, kind of share with the group too, from an advanced reproduction standpoint, kind of how that process works with bringing imported embryos in to then once those animals are here, from everything that can be done from an advanced reproduction standpoint.
Yep. Thanks, Doug, and thanks for everybody joining us tonight. See several familiar faces, so good to see you all again as well. So, yeah, so it's an amazing process. You know, I kind of joke around quite a bit and with things, and one of those is when you look at the work that's done on the human side and the difficulties associated with it, and then you look at what we're doing with advanced reproduction, but we do it in a barn, you know, and still have high success with those things. So it's interesting to look at from that standpoint. So when as far as the Tattykeel embryos that come across from Australia to the U.S., they will be frozen embryos in glycerol. And between the protocols that with Simon, the veterinarian that's doing the freezing on those, Simon Bell, and then also when they arrive here, we can help provide those protocols to whoever you choose to put those embryos in. So there's a specific thawing process that they go through. It's a little bit like a slow thaw, if you will. So it takes several steps of different concentration of solutions to step those embryos out. There's not a lot of variation in the thawing protocols, but we do have the one specifically from Graham and the Australia company that froze them. So we like to pass those along. There's always a few things too that if there's questions around it. I actually was on the phone with Dr. Collison in Iowa this morning. They were putting a set of embryos in out there, so I was on the phone with them, talking them through some things that way. So we're happy to help on that front. I think one of the interesting things, and I'll kind of answer a question that popped up here. That I think leads into this conversation quite a bit. Ask the question of, what's the difference between stud rams, flock rams, elite rams, and the different terminology in that. And I think for this audience, I would probably kind of share the fact of a lot of the Australian producers will have these, as far as these larger flocks go, and the way they're using a lot of the advanced reproductive technologies is they may have a subset. If they've got 1,000 ewes, they may have a subset of 100 ewes. That's what they would consider their stud animals, and those are the ones that they're going to produce the sires and the elite females to push the genetics along in the rest of their population. And so as you start to look at breeding these animals into your own flocks, and how does that look, maintaining that elite genetic group would be the advantage to that, and then being able to multiply those and replicate those, and then take them into your other animals. And so that process kind of goes on beyond what we initially do with the frozen embryos. So frozen embryos are obviously get transferred into your recipients, and then those embryos are 100% Tattykeel produced Aussie whites. And then from there, how you integrate that into your own flock is the other steps of that advanced reproduction. And so whether you take the best sire you get from your frozen embryos, you collect that semen, you can actually artificially inseminate that across your other ewes in order to get those elite genetics from Tattykeel across a higher number of your personal ewes. That's one way to get your F1 crosses. And then the other way is if you have your elite genetics from Tattykeel, and you've got one or two of those, or however many of those that you feel is donor quality, then you could actually go ahead and flush those to the genetics you've gotten from Graham, and start to produce a few more of those here to replicate those, to again produce more sires to go across the rest of your ewes. And so there's several different layers to how you can get those genetics into your flocks as quickly as possible to get the most benefit out of it.
So I know, Dr. Thompson, that people have seen posts probably recently of some IVF produced Australian whites here in the U.S. How does IVF play a role in kind of advancing the genetics?
Yes. Yeah, so IVF is it's actually a fairly new tool to the small ruminant world. It's been part of the bovine industry for many, many, many years. And just really in the last 4 or 5 years, we've kind of finally gotten that technology to where we feel like it's a good product for speeding up how we utilize these genetics. And so that being said, what we're seeing on these young females, and so when they hit, probably a youngest is probably 10 months, but you could be at 10 months on up, you can actually start them into the IVF program at that time. And so what that is it's a very minimally invasive collection of their eggs. And so on the ovary, there's a fluid-filled pocket that looks like a blister, and inside that blister is their unfertilized egg, and that egg is called an oocyte. And so with in vitro fertilization, or IVF, you go in there and you basically suck out the egg, and take it to the lab, and then it's fertilized in the lab, and then put into a recipient once it grows and develops. And so the one real advantage to that is it's a lot safer for those really young females. And so we can start earlier on younger females, to where conventional flush, with those delicate young uteruses, you have to be extremely careful you don't cause scar tissue or adhesion formations and things like that. So IVF1, it allows us to get started in those young females sooner. And then also, depending on how aggressive you want to be, if you look at a conventional flush program, those conventional flush programs, the quickest you want to repeat that donor would be 6 weeks. So if you did a conventional flush today on a donor, you want to let her heal and rest for about 6 weeks before you try to do another conventional flush. So with in vitro fertilization, we can push that up to every 3 weeks. because we're only going in with, instead of in a conventional flush, you make a small incision and exteriorize the uterus, and then we have to put that back in and sew them up, and they have to heal. With IVF aspirations, we actually have three ports that go into them that are going to be somewhere between a 5 millimeter and a 7 millimeter diameter hole. So there's just three of those that go in. We manipulate the ovaries, collect the eggs off of them. And so there's a lot less healing. There's a lot less trauma to the uterus and things of that nature. So you can actually repeat it a little more frequently as well. So if you want to be really aggressive, you can utilize that tool as well.
Very good. Thanks, Dr. Tad. We're gonna switch gears to Dax Diettrich for a few minutes and ask Dax a few questions. Dax is with Peak Ovine in Texas, and I refer to Dax as I think I don't have any real hard numbers on this. Maybe Graham can tell us, but I think Dax is the largest importer probably to date of Australian white genetics, and his operation down there in Texas. And Dax, if you would just kind of share with the folks kind of what your experience has been so far with not only putting in the frozen embryos on your operation, but also you most recently held, I think, what was the first major online auction sale of purebred Australian whites here in the U.S. So kind of share with us what the reaction was to that as well.
Awesome. Well, first, thanks for having me, Doug. Um, I'd say that the Australian white sheep for us has been really remarkable. Kind of stumbled across them in researching a high quality sheep breed. You know, there's Wagyu for beef and various other items for chicken and turkey, whatever you want to look at. But there was really nothing for lamb. So we stumbled across it just simply Googling. Then also, like you, went down to Australia and met up with Graham and got to eat the lamb there in person. And like you mentioned, it's some of the best lamb I've ever had in my life. I've had lamb around the world, from South America, in Australia, actually, in Europe, just nothing like it. But you throw in the fact that the sheep are so good structurally, you know, they've got a big muscular skeleton, they grow quick, they're polyestrous, all the things that a producer would want. But the most important thing to me is the fact that, you know, you get that lamminess out of the meat, and the American palate is not turned on to that flavor profile. So fast forward to, you know, falling in love with the breed, we've went an aggressive route and trying to get as many numbers on the ground as we possibly could. I think so far we've placed over 500 embryos frozen. We've got some lambs due here, another batch the 13th of February. We've also in the ewes we did have offered in the sale, we flushed all of those in a conventional flush, and I think we flushed 14 ewes. Two of them overstimulated to the FSH. So out of 12 ewes, I think we almost hit an 8 embryo average. They just performed really well, and that was with frozen semen from Australia. So I would expect those numbers to be a bit higher if we had freshly collected that semen that day. But the results of all the programs that we have done has been tremendous. The frozen embryos have really been awesome. My embryologist is just, he's blown away by how well they've done. And we're happy with the success we've had. We've used all different kinds of receps. I think our first set of receps were sale barn ewes that we purchased 30 days ahead of time. They were scanned open. There was broke mouth ewes to 3-year-olds. And I think we did a 55% on those. And so then we tried to step up our game and do some 2-year-old virgin ewes. Those did well. I think we did a 62%, 63% stick. And then we've done some more mature ewes. So pretty much every type of recep group you could imagine we've done. And I think we're sitting right at a 60% average in terms of blood tested ewes. We don't scan. We haven't scanned in an embryo count, but we've done it. We flushed in February 2nd, completely out of season, and we got those tremendous numbers. So everything has been, in terms of frozen embryos and flushing, has been amazing. Can't stress working with somebody like RSG or a really qualified embryologist, somebody who doesn't just AI and flush sheep and goats. They need to have some experience working with the glycerol and understand the process of the thaw. I actually had a friend tell me an analogy not too long ago. If you got to have an open heart surgery on yourself, you're not going to your hometown doctor. You're going to go to an open heart surgeon. So do your research and really try and do your best job in finding somebody that really knows what they're doing.
Well, and you've actually done that work, Dax, with a non-RSG veterinarian yourself, which is perfectly great. I mean, we support, as Dr. Thompson mentioned earlier, we support veterinarians across the country. We want to help anybody that gets these embryos. All we're doing at RSG is just providing the resources. We are the distribution hub going forward for Tattykeel to bring those imported embryos in, and then we're happy to dispatch those anywhere in the country. And as Dr. Thompson mentioned, share the thawing protocols, anything that we can do to help support to have success. And that's kind of what you've done. Appreciate the kind words, but just so everybody's clear, you've had success down there in Texas using some local folks to you, right? And
Right.
in
Yeah.
your area.
He's a professor, and he does it. He travels. So,
Yeah.
I also want to add, we scan in, or they will he'll scan them first, and then I have him blood test the ones that didn't scan pregnant to make sure he didn't miss any, because the value of these sheep are obviously tremendous right now. So do your due diligence, have them scanned, and then do the blood work on the opens, the ones that he did not see an embryo in. And then I would also, if you scan in, 55, 60%, anticipate a couple absorptions. And you're not going to, lamb out. If you do 100 embryos, you scan in 50, 55, 60%, you're going to end up with a roughly 50% lamb crop at the end of it. That's our experience, at least.
So Dax, you mentioned the high value of these animals, and I kind of teed this up earlier at the very beginning of the session this evening. You held one of the very first, I think, full Australian white sales. There's been some one-off animal sale and some sales. We know that the ram there was a Tattykeel embryo that topped the Pennsylvania ram stud test sale. Was an Australian white, outperformed all the other breeds, but from your standpoint, the sale you recently held, what's your takeaway from that sale, and kind of share with some that may not know the results of that, kind of what some of your top numbers were?
Right. I'd like to say foremost on this, the goal of the sale was to offer up something to the public, because the amount of demand right now is just through the roof, and people often will reach out looking for two ewes and a ram, or they're wanting ewes or looking for ewes, and not everybody has the ability to go buy embryos and do all of the work involved in getting embryos placed and lambs on the ground, and they're looking for animals at this point. So our goal with the sale was, one, get some exposure for the breed, which I think it did a really good job, but to get some people the opportunity to own an animal. The sale went extremely well. We're really happy with the results. We sold, I think it was 11 ewes, 11 ewes, 4 rams. Our rams were 5,000 to 7,250. And then we had 2 bred ewes. They were 12,000 and 11,750 or 11,250. Happy to say that those bred ewes were bred to our big ram we purchased from Tattykeel Carbide. The owner had exceptional results. It kind of blew my mind. He had a set of triplets, 2 ewes and a ram, and then the other ewe lambed 2 ewes as well. So a fantastic investment for his operation, and we're happy to hear those results come back. And then the rest of the ewes were, we averaged right around 6,000 to 8,000 on them. I think our average is overall in the sale 7,500 across the board on 14, 15 head. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but extremely happy of the results. I do think that with the amount of calls we still get, the amount of interest that's still out there, and the as few of people actually know what this breed is and what it's capable of, we haven't seen the beginning of it. I think there's a small portion of us that are on this call. There's a lot of sheep producers in the United States and spread out across the United States. That was represented. We had sheep go to Oklahoma, South Dakota, Pennsylvania, Alabama, Missouri, Indiana. So really spread out across the United States, which is a really good thing for the breed.
Very good. Thanks, Dax, for sharing that. And we're going to continue with kind of next steps. We're a little halfway through the call. And by the way, if you do have questions for our panelists, please put it in the chat. We've got several of them that have been posted there. We're going to get to those here in just a few minutes. If you do have additional questions for anyone on the panel here, feel free to post it there in the chat, and then we'll try to use the last few minutes of the time we have to address those. I do want to get to, though, kind of like what's next. So, Graham, we've got a tank that we're hoping to bring over very soon. I know you alluded to kind of the paperwork and the government things that you got to work through there. But the process is going to be that there's a new shipment of brand new embryos that's going to be coming over very soon. Tell us a little bit about that process and how people on the call can actually acquire or get their name put in for any of those embryos.
Okay. Look, the process has changed a little. Actually, Simon Bill's on the he's on the call as well, but the Australian government have changed how they have to be lodged, so that's delayed us by about a week. But the testing's all done. The tank's packed. There are embryos pre-sold out of this. There's probably 300 or 400 that are pre-sold. There'll be close to 1,000 embryos to go, so there's still plenty of embryos available, and they realistically should be there last week of January, but more likely first or second week of February now. Once we get everything passed by the Australian government, then we have to apply for the import permit through the American government, and then once that comes in, we've got, I think, a week or 10 days to get it on a plane and get it over there. So it'll be going Air Canada again. Last time we sent them in, they lost the paperwork, so we've actually changed things, and we have the tank has a cover that goes with it. It's in a plastic container, and we hope we can put those documents in there so they're not lost. That slowed it up last time, but they'll all go in through RSG. As most people are aware, we were only selling through One Breed Society. That's changed. That with what I'm concerned about is the Australian-wide community. So that's anyone that's bought embryos, or has genetics from here, which basically all the genetics have come from Australia. So, and all from Tattykeel. There are no silver bullets of another bloodline or something out there. It's all come from us. There is nothing else. There are other stud breeders there, and people are certainly welcome to contact other stud breeders and see if they're interested in sending embryos across. There'll be no live animals. That's way too expensive. But what they'll find is that this is not a get-rich scheme for selling embryos into another country, unless they're in a lot of tens of thousands. There's not a huge profit in it. So from the Tattykeel side, the reason we're doing it, and we are doing it in this way, that we have our on-farm collection centre that's registered, and that's where we send from. In the early stages, we had to send animals to quarantine centre, which was Simon Bell's quarantine centre in Western Australia. So that's 3,000 miles away. We never saw the sheep again, so we couldn't send the top 10% of our sheep because we were flushing those for ourselves. But the next ones went to Simon, and some of our top rams went over there as well. That might have been used here once, and then we sent them across there because we had sons, but they were still all stud, fully pedigreed sheep. So the difference on this is the pedigree sheep, as we have a genealogical history of their parents from the inception of the breed, and they're fully registered with the association. So the next ones that are coming, it's pretty simple to solve any confusion. They will be sent out through RSG to whoever buys wherever, and whoever you choose. And I couldn't stress more strongly what Dax said. Make sure you've got someone that has had experience with thawing frozen embryos, because flushing sheep or putting the embryos in, that's not the issue. You've got to know how to thaw them, and that's one of the reasons the difficulties of thawing with glycerol is one of the reasons that the cattle industry moved away from it, because can be too many hassles. So if you know what you're doing, results are good, and we've had from some very ordinary results, which if there is any ordinary results out there, we've got to work through those to solve the problems that there may have been. There's been some confusion about the quality of the embryos. If the embryos aren't thawed properly, well, you're going to have a problem with the quality of them. But we've gone, like the people that know what they're doing, some pretty good results, sort of up around the 80% stick rate. I think Dax's have stuck on average at about 65. And as you said, then you'll get an odd sheep that might have an undershot jaw or one testicle. This is all part of breeding. Not every animal is going to come out perfectly, but we would expect that on average that people would end up with about 50% quality animals that will be pretty consistent on that side. So the new one's coming pretty simple. The information will be there on the Tattykeel side or on your some of the sites in America or with RSG. We have an a US dollar account that the money can be wired into. So it's not a difficult process. It's just like wiring money to anybody else in the US. And then we bring that money in one hit, because every time we bring money back in, we're charged a fee for bringing it in. At the moment, our Australian dollar's not performing as well as what it was. So in the last few days, I've lost a lot of money in the transfer, but I haven't brought it in. So that's the story on it. From this shipment forward, I won't be sending a big number of embryos into the US and looking at saying, well, I'll sell them out from the US, because the reality is we don't make any money until we sell probably the last 25% of the animals. And it's a long time to be out your money. It's just too long. So from when we start collecting to when we sell the last of them, it's a long time. So in the future, it would be on a contract basis, which would mean that you would have to show interest, put a 50% deposit down on the embryo number that you wanted. You'd be locked into that, and then on export of the animals, you would be asked to pay the full amount before we would export them. So that will be a significant change, and particularly for those wanting smaller numbers. There won't be a group of embryos there where you can buy 5 or 10. You just want that option's going to end up too difficult. The numbers that have gone in, there's been a lot of talk about the numbers of animals that have gone in. There was some early genetics went into Tattykeel Farms in fairly big volume, and there's probably some of those embryos still available. The breeds has certainly come ahead a long way in the last few generations through us pushing the boundaries on embryo transfer and also selection on eating quality. We have enhanced that. So that's the story in the future. You would still be able to put an order in for smaller numbers, but unless there were bigger numbers going at the same time, it would be quite expensive on the export side. So we'll be on a particular price. At this stage, the last lot was sold at $600 US, and then the charges for the importation and the work that RSG do, that's added on top that you would be paying over there. So for us, it's $600. We have to see the extra cost that we'll be up for this time. It may be slightly more than $600 on this next group going in. Is it expensive? Yes, it seems expensive. Certainly not as expensive as buying Angus embryos out of the US or Canada for what I'm doing. And they're not worth as much as what the Australian white is. So, yeah, it is expensive, but the costs are not rated on how much money I can make out of selling to another country. The costs are around what my expenses are on this end. And if I wasn't doing it in our own embryo transfer facility, we can do it, because the costs of quarantining them would explode it from $600 an embryo to $900 an embryo overnight. That's how much difference it is. So, and the other beauty of this is the sheep that we are flushing, and some of them are sitting behind Doug there now, which are they're in flushing condition. I think you took that photo, didn't you, Doug?
I did. Yeah, these are some of the stud ewes. Yeah.
So you'll see there's a variation in size there and condition, but that's the ewes that we're flushing, and they're the better ewes. So what I don't freeze to go overseas, we don't waste those embryos. We put them in for ourselves, and we're flushing the same ewes for ourselves as well. So the quality of the embryos going in is the best that there is. There isn't any better.
So Graham, you might also just talk briefly. I know we have semen that you've previously brought into the U.S. that's stored at RSG as well, and we're going to make that available to breeders that have bought embryos, correct?
Yeah, that's where I want to limit it to like, there's no money in semen sales at all. I don't sell semen in Australia. I don't sell it really anywhere in the world, but I do offer quality semen from proven rams to people that have bought embryos that have got females there that they want to be pretty sure they're going to join it to an animal that's already proven. So that's the reason for that. There's not big numbers of it.
No.
Some of there's been a little bit sold. I haven't pushed that side of it. To be honest, I haven't pushed selling embryo side. They're there, they've been available, and there's no pressure, and I think some of the people that have purchased, they've got lambs on the ground, a lot of them, before I've even put an invoice into them. We're not doing this just to make money. This is we have to make money. We run a business, but the fact that we developed the breed, it's pretty awesome to be able to get that breed into other countries and think, well, you drive past them even in Australia, or you drive past a paddock and you think, well, I've created that breed, and here they are. So it's a bit of a boast, I suppose, for our side, but that it started here. But it's not about just trying to make a lot of money out of embryos, because the significance of what's going in, it's not significant enough to make a lot of money.
So I do want to get to some of our questions here. We've got quite a few of them. If you do have additional questions, we'll try to get to some of these for our panelists here. The time we've got left, we've got about 15 minutes or less than that now, I think, in the call. So we do want to let you know, too, this is being recorded and this will be posted later. If you did miss something or we didn't get to your question, Graham, Dr. Thompson, Dax, myself are happy to reply offline as well if we don't get to everything. One of the questions I think gets commonly asked, and we do have a number of new folks on here for the first time, but does finishing on grain lower the omega-3 in the meat?
It can, yes. Omega-3s are linked to green food, grass, but it doesn't necessarily lower it. We've done a lot of testing. We've actually proven that we used a pellet that was formulated in Australia by quite a good company, and they told us how much better the lamb would be on their pellet. So we ran trials on canola, just grazing on canola, just on normal grass with this different pellet. And then our professor actually has developed a pellet that will enhance omegas on the grain they're fed. So what we found is you couldn't eat the one off canola because it was like eating sauerkraut. It's like cabbages. It wasn't good at all. We know that was detrimental to eating quality. The pellet that we were told was really good, that was the second worst. The grass was good, and Aduli's pellet was a little better, but he's got all the secret herbs and spices on that. I don't even know what it is. The point is, if they've got even a silage diet, and a lot of our people that are feeding have found that they can basically just chop silage and feed that, and the sheep do like crazy without too much grain. Yeah, so that's a good question. It does have an effect, yes.
Another question that kind of ties into that. When do you see, like, if someone is using an Australian white buck in a breed up type program or crossbreeding program, when do the eating qualities show up in those animals that are like to what you described there?
It's the animals being bred, and for those of you that may understand or not understand genetics, you've got heterosis is when you're getting a cross, and that's your hybrid vigor. So if you've got heterosis in there, to get the most of the heterosis, you need homozygous animals. So homozygous are where they're carrying a couple of pairs of alleles that are a copy for a particular trait. This animal is that we've bred is homozygous for these traits. So when you cross it with another breed, you will see an immediate impact on eating quality. But it can be quite different with different breeds that you cross it with, and there's a limit to how much testing we could do on that to find those things out. But yes, basically it'll have an immediate impact. To get the consistency through to offer a branded product, we did try a branded product from some of our daughter studs that were selling to other people and bring that lamb back, and we found too much variation. So the moment that they were just Tattykeel genetics from purebreds that were, by the way, all upgraded, all started with another cross of sheep, but after the third cross, everything was there, and then they hold it. So we don't have to worry about that because it's a genetic trait.
Very good. So this question for, I think really more for Dr. Thompson. Is there any research that shows an impact of a lamb being raised by its natural mother versus a recipient ewe? Is there anything there?
Actually, we haven't actually tested the milk quality on the Australian white, but they've got a very compact udder and they milk extremely well. We found a difference when we started using Australian white upgraded commercial use. So commercial for in Australia is just an animal that's a slaughter animal. Basically, it's not a pedigreed animal. And we basically found that even with our Pole Dorset ewes now, if we flush Pole Dorset ewe, we put the embryo into Australian white ewe because the milk quality is so high. So because of omega-3s, and we actually think it's a bit like A+ milk, that it's probably very, very high in all things. So we think that they're better milkers, and even udder quality, there's very few udders that become pendulous and fall apart as they get older, but most of them stay very, very tight. So yes, there would be a difference between breeds. If we put an Australian white embryo in a Pole Dorset, they don't grow as well as if we put them in an Australian white. So there might be other breeds out there that milk more volume, and anything that would have East Friesian in it, for example, would milk with more volume, but it wouldn't have the same quality of milk.
Dr. Tad, any other thing to add to that? I think a follow-on to that question was, is there any difference when the ETU raises her own lambs?
Right. So I think just probably pointing out that there's no genetic transfer. So whatever the recipient is, there's not any genetic transfer from the recipient into that animal that's born. So if it's born as from a Tattykeel embryo, those genetics are the same no matter who, delivers it from that standpoint. The popular term would be epigenetics, and so what are the impacts outside of the embryo development that impacts the growth and development of those babies? And so, to Graham's point, the milk quality, how much, how what's the milk volume of those animals certainly is going to impact, how well the recipients are fed. All those things are going to impact how those lambs grow and develop. But that's with any breed or any species, whether it doesn't matter if you're transferring cattle embryos into recips, that recip does have an impact on how well those lambs grow and develop. And so, does that impact it? Yes, but you still have the same genetics to work with as you progress that breed.
So we've looked at like one of the things we've kept in our breed type is to keep the breed from being too big. There's not many purebred breeds of sheep or cattle around the world that actually have parameters around size. The reason we have that is from our experience of breeding stud animals for, all my life, and my father before me, is that when you push traits and you get the animals too big, they might be a big animal, but that doesn't give them the ability to feed their lamb better. It actually takes that ability away because they've got to eat so much more to maintain their own body weight before they pass anything through milk. So it's a good thing to have a good sized recip, but just being a massive recip or a big Australian white doesn't make it better, as long as you fit within those parameters. And we chase animals that grow quickly and early. And I think your that lamb that you've got, Doug, that's the in vitro lamb, IVF lamb, you've only got to see the body depth and the shape in that early. They grow very quickly.
Yeah.
And they're not doing this just because it fell out of the sky. They're doing it because we selected heavily for those traits. So it's you can keep all the data you like. The data we've got is we selected for those types, so they would do that, and then they'd shut down and not get too big when they're older. So your biggest rams will break down, your biggest bulls break down, your biggest cows break down. It's having that sensible size is where we want to sit.
So along some of these lines too, as well. Another great question here. I think alluding to kind of Dax comments about blood testing. Dr. Tad, what's the ideal time from a veterinarian's perspective to scan for accuracy for an ultrasound that would actually show you if you've got multiples or not?
Yeah, so that 45 to 50 day window is probably a little more ideal for trying to do fetal counts. If you're much before 45 days, you could potentially there's a couple of things that happen. Is one is has the uterus dropped over the pelvic rim enough to pick it up on ultrasound? Is your ultrasound good enough to pick those fetuses up? There's also there's still embryonic loss from that 30-day to 45-day window. So we've done some work, some study. We did a study 5 or 6 years ago where we were blood testing, doing blood test pregnancies at 30 days, and then we were doing a follow-up ultrasound at 45, and we found that there was still about an 8% absorption from 30 days to 45 days. And so even if you're doing blood testing, I think Dax was talking about some of the blood testing pregnancy stuff. There is going to be absorption, and just to echo exactly what Dax was saying, so we know that from 30 to 45 days you get a 8% absorption. So if you're doing ultrasound at that 45 to 55 day, you're probably going to be pretty confident that your fetal counts are going to be fairly accurate. There is still a few percentages that will absorb even after that 50-day window. But once you get much past 50 to 55 days, those lambs are going to get big enough that sometimes it's hard to pick up. You have to work a little harder, to try to find the second fetal heartbeat or the second indication of a twin.
Okay. So very good information. I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. I do want to provide everyone with a sneak peek of something that we've been working on with Tattykeel and RSG, a joint venture that will help support the importation of these embryos and genetics into the U.S. and the continued effort to kind of build the Australian white community here in the U.S. This is not affiliated with any associations or any other groups. This is a place where everyone is welcome. So we've got a website that will be fully functional and live early next week. It's cawg.us. We'll be adding information on here on how to directly get a hold of Tattykeel to make purchases for embryos and for semen, to put in requests for more information, things like that on this site. So this site is a little bit of a preview here. There's even an area right here on imports. So this will have the latest information on those imports coming into the U.S. As Graham mentioned, even when he gets to the point where he's not shipping in, but maybe taking orders to pre-sell in the future, as he mentioned, this will be a resource here where you can see how that process works and get some questions answered. The other piece of this that I do want to emphasize is it's a community site. You can have your farm listed here. We're going to help producers match up with each other. If you've got bucks for sale or females for sale or genetics for sale, this will be a marketplace too that you can share your information and the things that you have going on in your particular program. Try to connect with each other, help each other develop markets and sales and those kind of things. So this, like I said, will be fully functional here. Certified Australian White Genetics.us early part of next week. So a little sneak preview for that. If we didn't get to your questions in the chat, I will get those questions. We'll save those. We'll have either Graham reach back out, or if it's a veterinarian type question or question for Dax, we will get those questions responded back to you. As I mentioned, if you came on late, I know we had, I think at one point, close to 90 people on at one time. We will have this posted. You can go back and watch the full recording. If you did miss something or had questions about something, that'll be there available for you online. We'll be pushing that out through social media, and we'll have video here on this site as well, and on the RSG site, and through Tattykeel's platforms too. So with that, I want to thank everybody for participating. I've got 9:01 right on the dot. The time goes extremely fast in these conversations. Graham, any last thoughts from you as we say goodbye?
No, look, thanks everybody for we really appreciate everybody's patronage and the number of friends and acquaintances that we've met through this, and we hope that will continue to grow. I will answer all the questions on that have been posted, and if there's any more there, I'll answer them. So that's pretty simple. Like things like fescue, yes, we sow fescue for Australian whites, and we take it out for our pole Dorsets because they don't do any good on it. So, and question there, do we expect 50% good animals? Yeah, of course we do. But then somebody might not get 50%, another one will get 70%. So there'll be variations, and we just want to work with people and solve problems if there is any. And we won't just share all the good news. There's been some news on embryos that are not so good, but just be really careful that you don't blame, in particular, our embryologists on this end are extremely good, and we have absolute confidence in them. And these embryos, the same process, they've gone all over the world. So you're going to get variation in that, and like you'll also get variation in the quality of the animals. You've got an odd bit of colour, your one stones, few ratuals, all that's there. We're there to help on all of that. And look, I just appreciate people showing interest. And if you've got any questions at all, my WhatsApp's there, free call. If you jump on WhatsApp, I can disseminate information through WhatsApp easily. And I'm happy to talk to anyone at any time. If I miss a call in the middle of the night, I'll call back the next day. I do get back to people. Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Dr. Tad, any final thoughts from you? I think you're on mute there. Yep.
Yeah, no, just I think it's great to see this kind of response. People interested in the breed, and it's an amazing breed, and just great to be a small part of that. And Graham, thanks for all the information and the ability to kind of share with everybody. So appreciate it.
All right, very good. Dax, final comments from you as well.
I'll round us out. No, I don't have anything. I just want to say thank you to everybody that joined. I've got a lot of questions and a lot of people interested in calls. And if I don't have anything, there'll be other people that will. We can point you in the right direction. We do have 2 rams coming up in a sale in Texas. Texas Sheep and Goat Raisers Association's putting on a sale in March, and we'll consign 2 rams there. So if anybody's been looking for anything, we will have 2 really good rams in that sale.
All right. Thanks, Dax. Thanks, Graham, Dr. Thompson. Appreciate everybody being on this evening. Appreciate your time tonight. Have a great rest of your week. And as Graham says, cheers, everyone.
Cheers.